Welcome to Ghostly Gazette, where the eerie and unexplained come to life. Have you ever heard a voice when no one was there? Faced an intruder in the dead of night? Felt watched by unseen eyes? What if a routine run turned into a night of terror? Join us tonight as we explore 4 spine-chilling tales that will make you question the boundaries between reality and the unknown. Who or what is behind these mysterious encounters? Can you handle the suspense, the fear, and the paranormal? Prepare yourself for a journey into the shadows with Ghostly Gazette. Growing up, money was tight, and with my mom raising 4 kids on her own, space was limited. I, being the youngest, had the smallest bedroom on the first floor of our house. My room was a tiny square space with wooden flooring, situated next to the living room. It had 2 big vents in the floor at opposite corners and 2 vents in the ceiling. My bed, which took up half the room, was my makeshift desk where I did my homework. I was 13 years old, sitting on my bed, doing my homework when I first heard it, a child's laughter. It was unmistakable. I got up and checked the living room and kitchen, thinking one of my siblings was playing a prank on me. But everyone was upstairs. I couldn't just chalk it up to my imagination. The laughter was too clear. I tried to focus back on my homework but couldn't shake the sound from my mind. Just when I started to relax, I heard the giggling again. This time it lasted longer and seemed to come from inside my room. It felt like it was right there with me. I thought maybe one of my brothers was hiding, so I followed the sound to the corner of my room. The giggling led me to the vent on the floor. I got down on my knees and pressed my ear against it. Silence. Then, out of curiosity and a bit of fear, I put my eye up to the vent to see if I could spot anything. That's when I saw them, 2 eyes staring back at me. I screamed for my mom, who came rushing into the room. By then, the eyes and the laughter were gone. My mom thought I was overtired and imagining things, but I refused to sleep in that room that night. She let me sleep in her room for a week, but eventually she insisted I go back to my own bed. I spent the next 4 years in that bedroom without any further incidents, but the memory of that night stayed with me. The house we lived in was eventually sold, and we moved away. Since then, I've never experienced anything like it again. But I'll never forget those eyes in the vent, watching me from the darkness. This happened not too long ago. I live alone in my apartment. I should clarify that I don't take any medication, nor am I diagnosed with anything that would impair my awareness or cause me to hallucinate. This night was a one-time incident that I can't explain, and I really hope it stays that way. I had a long day at work. I work as a construction worker in the city, and I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. Depending on the projects we're working on, I'm ready to collapse on the couch after work and the gym. One night I stopped for food on the way home because there was no way on earth I was going to cook. I was exhausted. I got home and plopped the Chipotle I just bought on the ottoman in my living room, and I sprawled out on the couch to eat. This was later in the week, so I was already tiring out. I demolished the Chipotle. Could have eaten more. But I was so tired that I actually fell asleep on the couch while watching TV. I woke up a few hours later, realizing it was 11 at night. I was so comfortable under the blanket that I didn't want to get up, but I remembered I left my contacts in. I went to the bathroom to take them out and then headed to my bedroom to sleep in my actual bed. As I walked to my room, I heard my name called from the living room. All I could think was, what the actual? It was a female voice. I turned back around and went into the living room. I flicked on the light, but the room was too blurry. I said, "Who was that, Mom?" No answer. I had to get my glasses from my room if I wanted to see clearly. I made my way to my nightstand, grabbed my glasses, and went back out to the living room. I was the only breathing soul in there. My apartment isn't huge, just the kitchen and living room, which are one space, and then my bedroom and bathroom. Not many places to look and not many places to hide. But there also shouldn't have been anyone in my apartment. I called my mom just to confirm she wasn't here, and I apparently woke her up with my call. That answered that. I chalked it up to a brain fart moment because clearly no one was there. So I went to bed. It wasn't easy to fall asleep this time because now all I was thinking about was how I just heard a voice say my name. It was when I was finally starting to fall asleep that I heard a female voice say my name again, from inside the bedroom. I flipped over on my back and looked across the room. All I could see was this big, tall, human-shaped mass a few feet in front of my bed. I could see the long hair of a woman and barely make out what I must have imagined to be distorted facial features. I let out a harrowing scream as I fumbled for the light switch or my glasses. I knocked over the lamp as I finally found the switch to turn it on. And now there was nothing at the end of my bed. I put on my glasses and searched every nook and cranny of the room, under the bed, the closets, the dresser. Then I checked the rest of the apartment. I can say, as a matter of fact, that there was no one but me in this apartment. I felt like I was losing my mind. The only way I managed to go to sleep that night was convincing myself I had hallucinated these things because of lack of sleep or overworking myself. When I tell people about this, I downplay it, saying, yeah, I hallucinated this one time. I don't go into detail about how real it all was because then some people get doubtful or think I was on drugs. It was, without a doubt, the scariest, most surreal moment of my life, hallucination or not. For years, I kept this story to myself, unsure why I couldn't share it. But now I feel ready to tell it. When I was 16, I sometimes stayed at my grandmother's apartment to get some alone time and privacy. She lived alone, and many people in her building didn't even know I existed. Her floor had 2 other apartments. One was vacant, and the other was entangled in inheritance issues and also unoccupied. One time my grandmother went on a trip, and everyone in the building knew about it through their Facebook group. Seeking solitude, I decided to keep an eye on her place. The first night went smoothly until around 3 a.m. I was talking to some friends while gaming, wearing headphones, when a strange sound at the door caught my attention. Everything else faded away, the game, the conversation. I went to check and heard someone tampering with the lock. Looking through the peephole, I saw a man with his face covered by a scarf and a cap, using a tool to break in. He had already managed to open one of the latches. Thank goodness there were 2 locks, or who knows what might have happened. Panicking, I grabbed a family sword hanging on the wall. Standing by the door, I shouted, "Who are you?" The man froze but then continued working on the lock. Desperate, I yelled, "If you come in here, I'm going to stab you with this sword." He hesitated but kept trying to break in. Finally, I bluffed. The police are already on their way. I hadn't had the chance to call them, but it worked. The man stopped, got up, and walked away. Later I learned that the man wasn't a resident. After 2 months, I got to know everyone in the building, and he wasn't among them. No one had moved out during that time, confirming he didn't belong there. I live in a small, peaceful town. I don't live in a place where you have to worry about walking alone at night. I share a 1-story house with my sister, but she's hardly ever home. She has another place in Florida that she spends most of her time at. There's about 100 to 200 feet between each house on my block, and then there's some woods across the street. I have a daily routine. I get home from work, make dinner, shower, relax a little, then go for a run. I come back, have a light snack, then go to bed. It was a work night like any other. I was going for my nightly run, and when I came back to my house, there was a random white van parked across the street. I took notice of it because hardly ever would random cars park on any of these streets. Our little neighborhood has very little through traffic. I looked at it as I walked backward to my front door. and I could tell there was someone sitting inside of it, though I couldn't see anything regarding what they were doing. I don't know if the glass was tinted or if it was just because it was dark out. Later that night, I was hearing some weird sounds coming from outside. It was like a scraping sound. I looked out my window and called out hello, and it stopped. I had no idea what it could be, but my first guess was the neighbor doing something in his yard. I went back to whatever I was doing, and that was the night. The following day was a Friday, the last day in my work week. After work, I did proceed with my regular schedule. I went on my nightly run a little earlier tonight since it was Friday and I had plans with some friends. I got back from my run, imagining the van to be there again, but it wasn't. This time I went out with my friends to a comedy club, and I didn't get back until late. I let myself into the house and locked the door. It was a long night, and I was feeling tired, so I hurried up with getting ready for bed. After turning off the bedside light in my room and laying down, that's when things were finally silent enough for me to pick up on some weird thumping and rustling sounds. I felt like they were coming from inside of the walls. It's only a 2-bedroom house, it's not big. I put my ear up to one of the walls and indeed heard something going on in there. I knocked on the wall, and the noises stopped. This was a cause for concern, as I assumed it was a rodent or a wild raccoon. I went out to the living room, and passing by the windows, I looked outside and saw that white van parked outside again. I opened my front door and stepped out to the front stoop to look at the van. I didn't see anyone sitting in it this time. 2 nights in a row of this now, something was going on. I walked barefoot to the side of my house to look for possible holes in the walls for animals to crawl through. Then I came to the outside crawl space door. It was cracked open, and the lock was snapped off. I hadn't paid attention to this door in weeks. I pulled it open a little more, and without a phone or flashlight in my hands, all I could do was lean inside and squint my eyes in the pitch blackness of the crawl space. I heard the faintest little sounds of pebbles scraping against the concrete floor. At first, my naive mind was thinking it was an animal until the sounds turned more aggressive and more closely resembled human footsteps marching to the crawl space door. And then, just barely, I could see a person crouch walking towards me. I slammed the door and twisted the knob, but without a lock it wouldn't do anything. I ran back inside my house and called the police. While on the phone, I instantly attributed the crawl space door to the scraping sounds I heard the night before. The next time I went to the window while on the phone, the van in the street was gone. Police came, and I showed them the crawl space. We had to use flashlights as the crawl space doesn't have any lights installed. We found something disturbing in the left corner. There were cut marks in the roof of the crawl space, as if the intruder was trying to saw his way into the house. The only info I could give them was the white van parked in front of the house. We don't have cameras, nor did I see what he or she even looked like. They never came back, though I'd imagine because I caught on to what was probably supposed to be a silent operation. Thank you for joining us tonight on Ghostly Gazette. We hope these chilling tales have sent shivers down your spine. Remember, the line between reality and the unknown is often thinner than we think. What mysteries lie in the shadows of your own life? If you enjoyed tonight's stories, don't forget to like, comment, and share your own spooky experiences with us. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another journey into the unknown with Ghostly Gazette. Good night, and may your dreams be free of shadows.